this is a difficult one to talk about, and I'm gonna do my best. And I think it's an arresting film, and it's really interesting to hear from Vanessa about certain elements that were so important for her to get right. And in no in no other terms, she does. And I think the first 24, 25 minutes of this film are probably some of the most heartbreaking and heart-wrenching 25 minutes you will see this year. It's truly remarkable of a beginning of the film. There is the pacing of it, the performances, the intensity, and the intimate intensity of witnessing a birth. It's something that's ubiquitous in film and TV. You get 20 seconds of someone screaming in a hospital bed and you're kind of done. But there's something about the way that it's filmed and it's paced, how the camera moves around their house, the intense nervousness of the husband, the animal, almost guttural birthing scenes with Vanessa's character Martha. It really stops you in your tracks. And there's a particular singular moment that's kind of etched in my mind where just through a reflection through the face of the midwife, who's played by Molly Parker in this film, the dynamic changes. And it's my heart stopped, literally stopped. I felt it stop. It's something so rare to experience in a film, whether you have a family, whether you've experienced the particularities of this situation or not. It does not matter. This is such intimate filmmaking and such a bold and absolutely fearless performance, I think, by everyone in the film, but specifically Vanessa Kirby in this. It's it just stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I referenced it briefly in the interview, but I remember New Year's Eve 15 years ago, going through 22 hours of labor as my wife did. And after 22 hours, what we thought was the crown of my daughter's head was actually her cheek. And with any more pushes, she was going to break her neck, and she was completely trapped in there. And it all went that moment where they start panicking in the movie. I had that moment, just that complete what do we do? What do we do? Fortunately, we were in a hospital. It wasn't a home birth, and the fabulous folks at the NHS, they just said, look, emergency C-section. We just got to get that baby out, and
Mm,
they saved her life. And I found, just like you, that that opening 24 minutes was, it was unlike any other experience I had. It was probably the one time I was glad I wasn't in a cinema, because I think seeing that on the big screen, I think it might have been too intense for me. I was shifting around in my seat. The only thing I was grateful for was that I didn't have snacks. It wasn't snack time. It was incredibly powerful. Vanessa
mm,
Kirby, I never know how much to gush in those interviews, and I didn't want to gush, but
mm,
she must know. She just took it to a whole other level for me. And LeBeouf, I remember thinking of him as like Orlando Bloom, or Orlando Bland, as they
mm.
used to call him in this parish back in the day. Just not a serious actor. And bit by bit, movie by movie, that guy continues to surprise me and prove me completely wrong. There's something so real about that guy. And Ellen Burstyn, an actor that I grew up with, she's just
She can do
everything
no
she
wrong.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything she does is just gold. She felt like someone in your family, right? Like I
Mm,
recognize that character.
mm.
Sort of appears to be at first like a busybody, then you realize there's more to it than that, and just it must have been so satisfying for an older actor to not have to play the air quotes grandma, or the air quotes busybody. Like she was great as well.
There's something that Vanessa mentioned in your interview with her, which I think kind of really distills it to a nugget. And she's like, she's always trying to strive, or all actors try to strive for a nugget of truth, something
Mm,
that feels real, or even
mm,
more real than real life. I know that's not a perfect sentence and it sounds a bit weird, but that's kind of the power of art sometimes, that it kind of gets at, or cinema specifically, it can get at a nugget of truth that's almost too difficult in real life to process, but it becomes palatable when it's presented as a story, as a fictional story, even though this is based on real life experiences and will echo for sure experiences of many people. But she does that, and I think part of it's that thing of her being unafraid to be messy on screen and unafraid
yeah.
for Martha, her character. And I think this is very much a testament to not just Vanessa and her performance, but also the writer and the director of the film, the fact that there is no one way of processing grief, and there's no one way of processing anger, and no one way of processing loss. This is just Martha's way. And the
Mm,
film is true to that. And I think it's particularly powerful because female characters, women being allowed to process very ugly emotions, very intense and powerful and not pleasant emotions, is still quite rare to see. And it's very easy, I think, sometimes for performers to fall into glossy, over the top, awardsy
yeah.
performances that
Yeah.
don't ring true, because
Mm,
truth is messy and ugly truths are even messier.
mm,
And Vanessa here really leans into it. The entire film leans into the messiness of a terrible experience that generates very different approaches to loss, very different approaches to grief, and very different approaches to processing all of that, down to the timing of it, of the timeline of everybody's traumatic grieving is entirely different. It's out of sync.
mm.
And being out of sync with the people closest to you, be that your partner or your family, is in itself a very ugly, messy reality to live through. And I think that film praise is true to that.
Yeah, and I wonder if a part of it is like Vanessa referenced. I had no idea that the writer and the director were married, and that this tragedy had happened to them. It, in a way, would have been difficult not to find the truth when you're working so closely with those people
Mm,
every day. There would have been um, uh, a desire to be loyal to their truth. I think the real achievement for the actors in there is that they they weren't so respectful that it was just constantly in awe of, you know, this remarkable story, so to speak, and
mm,
everyone's pussyfooting around, like you say. Their willingness to be messy, to be gross, to be unreasonable is so refreshing to see, and the complete lack of vanity in obviously such a gorgeous actor as Vanessa, like that. I find that really refreshing as well. There's no like, let me quickly just make sure my hair is good in this scene, and can we
oh,
just have a quick
absolutely.
touch up of the makeup, bit of light on my cheekbones. It's just like, let's go for it. Let's jump in the mud and roll around and see what happens. Um, yeah, I found it really, really, really moving. I was tried to prepare myself emotionally
Mm,
for it, but I still found it difficult. I'd love to have a conversation with you at a much later date about the final frame.
mm,
But that's a conversation for another day, because I think everyone should try and check this movie out. You
yeah.
obviously got the chance because it's on Netflix. Um,
I mean, like I mentioned before, the first 25 minutes of this film, I was in tears. And
yeah,
I'm not a
how could you not
crier.
be?
I'm not a movie crier. And I was just thought I was having a heart attack and then was in tears, and then the movie actually started.
Really interesting that they didn't spend another 5-10 minutes showing the immediate grief, because in most movies, when there's a tragic moment,
Mhm.
that's the money shot, right? That's the
Yeah.
Oscar-winning moment. Oh my God, look how he reacted to his friend being in the car crash or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But actually, interestingly enough, just when you think you've seen it all, they completely jump over that and go into the depths of grief, like how it manifests itself, how it mutates, how it grows over time, and how it needles its way into
Yes.
all elements of your life without you being able to control it.
I think
I thought it was a brave film.
that's such a great point because it's not voyeuristic. It's a film
No,
about a difficult
no.
subject, but I think that that money shot, like you called it, would be would be just too crass. It would be
Mm-hmm.
voyeuristic. It's what we have
Mm-hmm.
been conditioned by years and decades of, difficult subjects being tackled poorly in film and TV to expect, but it doesn't give us that because the reality that it's aiming at is not as or has not been presented it's as cinematic, but it's truthful, it's human, and it's difficult to watch, and it's gonna be
Mm,
ugly.
mm. Um, I don't know if it exists in the sort of nil by mouth world of would I watch it again, because it is quite painful. That said, the performances are strong enough for you to find some satisfaction in a repeat watch. But I would say I'd recommend everyone watch it once, and with it being up there on the ubiquitous Netflix, there's no reason not to.